Hi guys, how you doing? I'm Matt, for all you guys that don't know me. Technical consultant for Rockwell Automation. Before I came to Rockwell, I was actually a maintenance manager. So I know a little bit about product lifecycle, the hard way. All right, so our topic today is control system lifecycle. You guys, anybody in this room have any older systems in their facilities or that they have to work with? Get your hand up. Have you found that they get a little more challenging to deal with over the years, or always just the same?
Pretty much the same.
Unless you have to make changes, right? Okay. Or unless something goes wrong. Okay, so machine automation obsolescence is risk. So if you're getting to the end of a product life cycle and you can't get it, is it going to get more expensive or less expensive? It's always going to get more expensive. And you know that I've heard a lot of people over the years, including myself, absolutely kicking Rockwell specifically because when products get later in their life cycle, we do jack up the prices so that you end up with, you know, some additional motivation to migrate to something new. So I'm sure we're not the only manufacturer that does that, but that's the reality. So the idea is the older the equipment in your facility, the more risk there is. So our whole objective today is to raise some awareness. So you know what you have in your facilities or what you look at with some of your customers. You can recognize it and say, okay, I know this is there, this is not going to be around forever, what can we do about it? So does anybody here have a life cycle plan? Oh, there we go. Anybody have a life cycle plan already for some of their obsolete equipment in their facility? Raise your hands if you have a life cycle plan, an official life cycle plan. There we go. One out of, you guys work for the same company, I know. Okay, so we've got one customer in here with a life cycle plan. Okay, so that kind of fits the data. So there was a study done in 2010, and 88% of Rockwell products actually had no plan. That's kind of a big deal. So why would you want to migrate? It's a more competitive world. It's more expensive to maintain equipment. Does anybody have 1394 servo drives? I know one. Yes?
Yeah.
Two. He actually had one held together by duct tape 8 years ago. Is that one still commissioned?
Duct tape and tie wraps, yes.
Okay.
It's not 2x4 now. Against the side of the panel, raised against the side of the panel, the new one.
So if you're using duct tape to keep stuff together, it's, you know, that's usually a signal that maybe it's time to start moving that along before the sky really falls. As technology emerges, you can do more and more things with the technology. So we're going to talk about integrated architecture in a couple minutes here, but there's more and more things that we have to deal with. So we got a bunch of control disciplines, we'll talk about that. So business goals, what do you really want to get out of it on your life cycle plan? You want to increase your OEE, you want to be more agile, and we're the right supplier to get you there. So that's our little shameless Rockwell plug. I think we really do this well, the life cycle plans. Just the fact that we're talking about this today, I don't think a lot of other manufacturers are going to make a big deal out of this unless you're under service contract to them already. All right. Anybody have any of these issues? I want to migrate. I don't want to just rip and replace everything. I can't afford to be down. What are my options? So the whole idea is if you're going to deal with your product life cycles, you want to make sure that you do it on your terms. The worst, and we're going to illustrate this with a little example later. but you really want to deal with this on your terms. The worst time to deal with it is 3 a.m. on Sunday morning. That is not the time to deal with your obsolescence issues because, you know, you might get through it. I'll just leave it at that. So, instead of all our concerns about migrating things, we can actually get some tangible benefits. One of the major ones is data. If you're trying to do anything with OEE in your facility, and somebody's tried to connect one machine to another, you'll find that there are roadblocks to being able to do this. So if somebody wants to have if somebody really wants to get data, that's one of the hardest things to gain with older systems in the middle. You've had some interesting challenges with that, I know that. So more flexible production. If your machine is flexible and can be modified to do different things, maybe you don't have to buy a new one this year. So there are tangible benefits of migrating. So we can help you identify risks and get you to where we are today, and I'm going to talk a little more about that. All right, so again, yeah, another plug for Rockwell Automation. Yes, we will communicate the life cycle, where your products are in the life cycle, and we're doing so today. We'll talk about phase migration paths, and we do have a suite of global solutions and services. So we're not just an equipment manufacturer. We've got a lot of really great system integrators in the state of Connecticut specifically who can also help you out with that. But if you can't get somebody or the expertise isn't available, we're there to help. I'm plugging our integrators in the room appropriately. Okay. Okay. So here's our official product longevity and life cycle communication. Okay. So our products go from active to silver to discontinued to obsolete. Those are official. What you have on the board here is our kind of unofficial way of looking at this. It may be that marketing would have a cow if they saw us discuss this in these terms, but this is reality. So, Rockwell product life cycle, active, silver, discontinued, obsolete. What does this mean? So, I've added pre-release to this. Has anybody ever heard us talk about a Rockwell product before we've actually released it? Okay, so you understand why there's a timeline there. Yeah, we get to the point sometimes where we're actually leery about talking about things until we've actually held one in our hands. So, pre-release, we get new products. Are there any risks associated with new products? I think there are. I like to wait at least a month, so that, the initial wave of questions is already dealt with. Because, let's face it, not everybody is trained up the first month on the new product. And especially if we've been waiting for it for a year and, it was supposed to be released and all of a sudden there it is. So, active. New products, there's a little bit of, I'll say there's a little bit of risk associated with that. Prime, these are the products that if we're going to be using anything right now, these are the ones that we're going to recommend. Certainly there's some when you get new products, you get new features, new capabilities. Prime products are where we really move right now. Mature, again, active. Just because a product's mature doesn't mean we have announced a silver date on it yet, okay? So a silver date is kind of like, think of that as the warning bell. When we send you a Silver Series announcement, it's time to start paying attention. So I would consider a mature product a product that you may have in your facility. It's not Silver Series. We have a new product already that's in the queue that's either here or here that will probably be replacing it. That's something that we may not recommend for a new control system. So I'm going to give you an example of, let's see if anybody has an example of what might be a mature product right now.
Fives.
Well, actually, there is some fives here, but fives are generally here, and there's a lot of five stuff over there. Any other ideas? Slicks.
Yeah.
Slick 500. Now, you guys know that we've been supporting Slicks forever, and we probably will be supporting slicks for a very, very long time. But that is a very mature product, and that's not something we're going to be talking about very often, unless it's in a situation where you have some downtime.
There's no non-pack logics?
Yep. Yep. We certainly have some micrologics processors, and they have their own space in here, all active. There are some micrologics that are, toward this direction, but. So, this is our official lifecycle communication. So, we have services that are useful to you all the way through the life cycle. We have a Step Forward program. Has anybody ever heard of Step Forward? Step Forward is a discount program for migrating. So you'll get actual money back when we receive the old equipment. So if you have a one-off somewhere in your facility, that could be worth the time. As I said, we have Lifecycle Services, and you're going to get notified for Silver Series, and we have some end-of-life services too. And they'll be discussed much later on in the presentation today. Okay, Silver Series. So Silver Series is our official warning. I'd say that's besides the actual release of the product where I'm holding it in my hand, the Silver Series is probably one of the most critical things that we communicate. So what do we do in Silver Series? The whole idea is we're looking at as a manufacturer, a lot of us manufacture things in here. Do your suppliers ever change? Your raw material suppliers. Do any of your raw material suppliers ever go out of business? Get hit by tsunamis, hurricanes, wrath of God stuff. It happens, right? The other thing that's going on is, I don't know if you know the electronics industry, but where do you suppose the most activity in the electronics industry is nowadays? Cell phones. Does anybody here not have a cell phone? You can have mine if you want. So, with the constant need to innovate, if you have a cell phone that's 3 years old, it's getting out there a little bit, right? If it survives, I've broken a few myself. But in any event, so as we move along, we want to make sure that you're warned that we see that parts, we're not going to be able to necessarily have the parts available forever, because the electronics industry changes a lot. Does anybody have a machine that's 20 years or more old? Oh God, I'm glad you guys are here. We got to talk. So, typically we give you a, God, I hope we don't see, a 0 to 24 month time frame in which you can still order new products before they become obsolete. Hope you don't, has anybody seen the product is gone? Have we ever just discontinued a product with no notice? I hope not. I haven't heard of it. We try very hard to avoid that. Typically, it's 12 to 18 months, and it's a function of how long do we think we can get parts for this specifically. Because we could have fewer manufacturers. So in any event, what does that mean to you? We're going to send you a letter. So when we actually have the opportunity to talk about have a product lifecycle discussion, as opposed to oh my God, the machine just went down, oh my God, I can't get that anymore. We actually typically talk about phased migration. Not in every situation, a weekend rip and replace may not be the best scenario. Has anybody ever done a weekend rip and replace on a control system? How'd you sleep Saturday night? It's a lot easier when you plan these things. And you know what? It's a good thing if you have, let's say you have 10 machines of the same type. It's a lot easier that way because you can still run some portion of your production. Once upon a time, I got involved in a water treatment system rip and replace over a weekend. And this was a water treatment system for a beverage plant. So how many water treatment systems do you think you have in a beverage plant? seems like just a minor trifle, right? I mean, why do you need water treatment in a beverage plant? Because then you can't run any of your 5 lines. So weekend rip and replace, there are times for it. And if you're gonna do a phased migration, you can make it so that only one portion of this is a weekend rip and replace, right? You don't have to do that, the whole thing in one shot. You do it piece by piece, less can go wrong. We're trying to lower risk, because that's what this is all about. It's about risk. So, in an existing control system, we've got a bunch of tools to do this. We convert the logics, put in a new, convert the logic, convert the visualization piece. I/O can typically be the last thing to go. We've got a lot of ways to help you with this. So you upgrade portions of your automation system at your pace, as opposed to the pace specified by, anybody have a union facility here? Okay, so there are rules that determine the speeds that some things get done. And at the last minute, it's not always pretty. So we have an extensive migrations toolkit. Step forward program. Just to make sure I got across that. What's a step forward program?
Get credit back.
You get credit for your old system, all right? So one of the things that we can do for you, and this can be a plant-wide discussion, a plant-wide project. We can do an installed-based evaluation. So what does that mean? What do you have? Where is it in the life cycle? So you get a nice report out of it. That's a paid service. If it's something on a machine or something smaller, then we can typically get one of our automation specialists involved in that and help move you along. And there are definitely some integrators in this room that can do the same thing and get you moving forward. So, anybody ever use Integrated Architecture Builder? Besides our, oh good, we have a user. There are actually some migration tools built right into that you can say, okay, here's the PLC5 system. What sort of control logic system do I replace this with? That takes a lot of the guesswork out, because if you think about it, any engineering design is subjective.
Is Reliance Automax in there?
You have Automax.
Yeah.
Okay. We've got to talk about that. John Schalbetter is going to be in here a little later, and I'm sure he's going to talk about that as well. The Automax?
I found the card.
Okay, so you have, how many of those do you have in your facility?
I deal with 3 facilities, so we have a few.
1, 5, 10?
Probably about 5. Oh, I know. I know.
Actually, you know what? I'm gonna have a buzzword for the day. Okay, you'll hear that. That's what we're meaning. All right, so we have a bunch of enablers to help you along the path with your migration. So, a drive system, that would be what an Automax is, correct? So what we do an installed base evaluation, figure out what you have. We have a whole bunch of migration guides. We're going to allude to this in and out of the conversation today, but there are a bunch of migration guides that we have put together that help you to get from point A to point B, because the challenge is, again, as you get longer into this product cycle, is anybody here a PLC2 expert? We have one. Yeah, I'm sure we've all used them at one point, but they're still around, right? I'm sure you see them from time to time. So, one of the challenges we face is if you have to move that along, you want to have the best information possible. Somebody has to know enough about the old system to be able to make the intelligent decisions to move it to the new technology. So we have guides to do specifically that. All right, so can we reuse motors, feedback devices? Oftentimes we can. Motors tend to be and we're going to talk about motion a little later, but do the new motors always fit where the old motors don't always fit, right? So if you have to change a motor or something, that can be pain, because that's not just an electrical problem, that's a mechanical problem. So, as I said, how do we interface the new drive to the existing machine? We're going to need migration guides to that. As technology moves, it's harder and harder to integrate new technology into older technology. That's painful. If you look at a system that's been up and running for, let's say, 10, 15 years, that's had a bunch of additions to it, if you look for the most expensive portions of that to maintain, where there's one super guy that knows the keys to the kingdom and nobody else, that's where you're going to find it. So we have a bunch of tools. We've got add-on profiles in Logix, a bunch of things that with our new technology that can make your life a lot easier. All right, so another Rockwell Automation plug. So we have Turnkey Solutions. We can do things globally. We've got a lot of talent, not just in this room, but we've got a lot of talent globally, especially for you OEMs. Do we have any OEMs? Any OEM representatives in here? No? Okay. Well, there we go. We have one. Got to support around the world. So integrators, we mentioned that we have some integrators in the room. We have an official integrators program. So we have solution providers that can also go, can also reach worldwide. So, and again, what we just mentioned, we have a bunch of self-serve tools and programs to help you get from point A from point B. So migration, planning, and execution, you got a lot of options to do that. You need options. And you need to do this before the sky falls, because that's where you're really going to get into the crazy expenses. All right, integrated architecture. Has anybody ever heard us talk about integrated architecture before? I hope you guys have all heard it over and over and over and over and over again, because that's what we work with, all right? What's integrated architecture? It's our enabling technology that goes through most of our newer products. As I press myself up against the door here, what does it mean? The ability to get a lot of information where you need it pretty easily without having to write a book. Multidiscipline, we can do motion, process, pretty much anything you need, robots, pretty much anything you need to control in one control system. We're scalable. You don't need to necessarily use a redundant control logics processor. You can use some of our newer, less expensive compact logics processors. The software is the same. The tools are the same. It's the same integrated architecture. Does anybody have a system in their facility that has redundancy? What do you got? Control logics. Anybody have PLC5 redundancy?
Yes.
Got that too. How about PLC3s? Anybody have any PLC3s, by the way?
I'm already on now.
By the way, when you get to obsolete, what are your options?
Cry.
No, there are options.
eBay.
Seriously, there are options. eBay is a major option. Now, I'm going to give you some unofficial advice on eBay. Buy 2 or 3. If you're in a crunch, buy 2, buy 3 if you can find them. Don't buy 1. So, yes, that's one option. What are your other options when it's obsolete and it's down? Did you have a, go ahead.
No.
Yeah, I know, I got you. Do you have a spare? You guys have spares on everything? You probably do. So, that'll be very helpful in your,
I have a spare, but it's in another machine.
there it is. That's the reality.
There you go.
That's all the greatest engineering is done by cannibalizing. Okay, so in any event, so integrated architecture allows you to build a business where productivity, globalization, sustainability, and innovation reign supreme. Anybody understand the concept of sustainability? Has anybody heard it? It's a big buzzword right now. Could anybody give me one word to kind of describe what it means? Yeah, surviving. Not wasting, right? Yeah, but surviving is a good way to look at it. So, again, integrated architecture, information flows, multidiscipline, it's scalable. We have Premier integration that makes it so that a lot of, and we'll illustrate this throughout the day, Premier integration is where it takes less effort to integrate one device into another than maybe it did 10, 15, 20 years ago. Unmodified Ethernet. Anybody know what Ethernet IP is? It's really nothing different than what you're running on your router at home. Total lifecycle, we're talking about modular programming. We're not going to go into that in too much detail today, but it's a modular, scalable system. That's integrated architecture. Okay, sorry about this. You've seen that, that's all. All right, so again, how do we get there? We identify the risks, we're already talking about them. We mitigate the risks, and we eliminate the risks. So again, services-wise, installed-based evaluation, services designed to maximize the life cycle, and migration planning and support services. So that's our pitch. Now what we're going to do for the rest of the day here is we're going to go through piece by piece. We're going to have some scenarios. We're going to have some different products that you probably have heard that are getting long in the tooth, and where we might consider moving to and why. So what we want to do is we want to help you guys have the discussion so that you can actually get things done in your facility. If you need us to have the conversation with others, we'd be glad to come help you do so.